My Hero Academia, Chapter 237, Shigaraki Tomura, Origins. So this is certainly an improvement in tone from the previous two chapters that we had, but still tragic nonetheless. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I did enjoy those chapters for what they were and what they represented, but it's just nice to move on from that stuff, you know what I mean? And it seems like by the end of this chapter, we might be fully out of Tomura's backstory, at least I hope so, and we're going to be getting into the main course or the final course of this arc, but let's get into it. So we're seeing Tomura wandering around town in the aftermath of him taking out his entire family, and no one really wants anything to do with him. I mean, come on, he's walking around looking like a creepypasta. I'm not expecting a lot of people to just immediately go and console him. But then we kind of expected that this was the case, at least from the initial flashbacks of Tomura's backstory and origin that we got. Talking like Season 2, Season 3 stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of expected that this was going to happen. But also, this is also like further cementing why he hates heroes so much, because no one came to save him. He also seems to think that it's like because they somehow inherently knew that he had taken out his family and that this was punishment for it. But clearly that is not the case. He's just continually to be a victim of misfortune. And then we eventually see All For One find him under a bridge, which I think is giving us more context into this original flashback that I was talking about, because we knew that this was going to happen too. Like, this is in the beginning of the series as well. But then we see All For One with his hand out, and he has that hole in his hand again. So this hole could be like one of three things. It's likely just what his quirk is. It like comes with it, because we saw that when he activates his quirk, like when he takes somebody's quirk and he transfers it or whatever, he uses his hands. Like, he places his hands atop somebody's head. I don't know if, of course, he always has to do that, but it's coming from his hand. So this is likely just has to do with his quirk. 2, it could just be like some kind of Christ allegory from Horikoshi here, or maybe it's just a mixture of both. But then 3 could be like some kind of modification from Yujiko. It's not as likely as the former, but it's still a possibility. And also, we have to go back to that hole that Tomura had in his hand 2 chapters back. It's oddly similar to the hole that All For One has here. So is that hole like showing us that that's how he got the DK quirk? Because I'm not letting that theory go. I think it's very likely that All For One and Yujiko somehow worked together to make this DK quirk, gave it to Tomura because he was allegedly born quirkless, if we're assuming that he didn't manifest the DK quirk. So either Horikoshi is just never going to touch on that hole in the hand thing again. Maybe it was just misdirection possibly, but I think it's pointing to something. So then it cuts back to more of the flashback that we initially saw in chapter 222, like when Yujiko puts all of his family members' hands on the table and after he like barfs and whatnot. And All For One is like, that itch is simply your body letting you know that your urge can't be contained any longer, the urge for destruction. So maybe this is true. Maybe that's what his mysterious itch was this whole time. It was just Tomura was just born a psychopath and he needed to destroy and kill and whatnot. Or maybe this is just All For One like planting that seed in his head, possibly, because it was alluded to before that the itch was caused by like the manifestation of stress from that his father caused him, possibly. Or maybe it was all along just Tomura's like psychopathic itch, you know, the urge that he has, maybe. So then after conveniently being bullied by some street punks, it cuts to All For One spouting some sociopathic rhetoric where he's like, integrity, morals, ethics, all of them are just social constructs designed by some guy who just wanted harmony in the world. And this, I think, pretty much just like All For One just further planting seeds in Tomura's head. It's like, it's okay to be evil. Go ahead and destroy and kill everything. It's okay, because it's what you want. That's most important. And it just reminds me so much of like Palpatine from Star Wars. Like, yes, let the hate flow through you. It's like, oh man. All For One is just unredeemably evil at this point. He is a cool character, and I think he's a great villain. But wow, is he just so ridiculously evil. But it's also like he knows it, I guess, because he does say that he is the symbol of evil and that he wants Tomura to be the symbol of terror. So it's like, hey, I mean, I mean, he's not in denial about it, I guess. And this pushes Tomura over the edge, and he's like, I want to kill those punks that were bullying me earlier. And I think this might be showing us that Tomura was always possibly on the fence about killing and what is right and what's wrong, because he didn't immediately kill the punks when they bullied him, which you think at this point maybe he would have, because he was like holding his hand up, we see in the previous panels, but he decides to stop. But then it's at this moment where All For One is like letting him know that it's okay. It's okay to do whatever you want, kill whoever you want, it's fine. And this is just like, I guess, showing us that maybe Tomura wasn't unredeemably beyond repair, you know, at the start. Maybe there was hope for him, but unfortunately he just fell into the wrong crowd, essentially by force. But yeah, and then he destroys one of the hands that Yujiko made for him, and this is just setting up a device for him to get more trophies, I guess, and just further pushing All For One to get more kills under his belt to, you know, further break his mentality and groom him the way that he wants him to be. And then we get some interesting dialogue from All For One and Yujiko observing him from a distance. Also, the fact that we see him observing him from a distance here is probably letting us know that he always has been. You know, like he's been observing him even before the whole decay quirk stuff, like just grooming him and following him this whole entire time. And it's, I think, further showing that it's very likely that he was the dude that dropped off Tomura to his house 2 chapters back, you know, because we thought that immediately. But I think this is like giving us more evidence that since he's observing him here, it's likely that he's always been doing it. But back to the dialogue, he says that he's just shutting them out. They still exist deep inside his heart, talking about his memories. And that he wears the hands of his family as if he's restraining himself, reproaching himself. And with his memories locked away, all that's left are residual emotions. And then look at him. He doesn't even realize he's holding back when he's using his quirk. So that's showing us, you know, what's currently happening to this day, is that all of this repression is actually repressing his own power. But the more and more that his hands are destroyed in this arc, the more of his power is unlocked. And then All For One just straight up puts his cards on the table, and he's like, in that case, I'll give him the affirmation he needs. The Seeker of Destruction, the world's symbol of terror. And this is like making me remember that Horikoshi is a big fan of Star Wars. And this is like, yeah, this is totally like Palpatine and Anakin. And it's also going back to like the Sith's rule of 2. I think that's what it's called, where like a Sith Lord always needs an apprentice. So if anyone was wondering, like, why does All For One want to make Tomura the symbol of terror when he himself could be that? Well, I guess it's going back to Horikoshi being influenced by Star Wars. But also, there's always that inherent need of needing a successor, I guess regardless of how evil you are, at least in this instance. And also at this point, I guess All For One doesn't want to be out in the public. Maybe it's just not worth it for him to be the mascot of evil, you know, the way that All Might is the mascot of good. Maybe he prefers to be the puppet master in the shadows, because we have to also remember that, like, no one really knew who All For One was. Only, like, people in the know knew who he was. It's not, like, public knowledge that this guy exists. Now, of course, that is large in part due to All Might and the powers that be suppressing that knowledge, but also I think it might also be part of All For One wanting it that way. Now, granted, originally All For One was all about just being out in public and being like the god of civilization, essentially. That's what was going on like around 100 years ago, but I guess something has changed since then. Maybe he realized that it's better to just be in the shadows and to have like an apprentice be the symbol of terror rather than you yourself. So then we see All For One give Tomura 5 replacement hands, 4 of them belonging to the thugs that he had just taken out, and then 1 extra to replace the one that he destroyed earlier in this chapter. And Tomura makes note of this. He's like, 2, but there are 5 of them. He's like, it's a bonus gift to replace the one you destroyed, a keepsake to ensure you never forget. So I guess I missed something, or maybe we're not privy to this information yet of who this 5th hand belongs to. I think it's possibly left this way intentionally for it to be like a mystery, maybe, or maybe I'm just missing something, but I think this is probably important, and it's going to come back as to who this 5th hand belongs to. But then again, maybe I missed something. So then we're getting maybe the biggest reveal of this chapter, and it's the explanation of Tomura's name, something that has eluded us up until this point. I always assumed it was just some kind of code name, you know, to make up for Tenko Shimura, but no, there is a specific reason to this. So Tomura is to mourn, signals the sorrow of death and parting. That's cool, whatever. But Shigaraki is All For One's last name, which is super surprising, and it's kind of weird seeing that All For One has a last name, because it kind of humanizes him in a way, because, like, All For One, of course, I mean, he was born just like any other person, but he's always been, like, held in this deity-like status. I mean, because of his power, but also because of his legend. So, like, of course, he's always been referred to as All For One. So, like, I always thought it maybe Horikoshi didn't want to give him a name, just to, like, the way that we never really fully see his face, because it's not really necessary. It's more so what he represents. He's kind of like the personification of evil. So giving him less human features, such as a name and a fully revealed face, kind of gives him that air of just dread and mystery and something more so than just a typical human. And also, I guess this means that One For All's name is Shigaraki as well, considering that he is his brother, and we're led to believe that they are biological brothers, so that's pretty interesting. I'm sure this is going to come back. Maybe there's going to be like another Shigaraki or something, or maybe there's an ancestor, possibly. I don't know. We're going to see, but I think there is a reason why Horikoshi is telling us that this is All For One's real name. So then finally it cuts back to the present, and we see Gigantomachia going on a rampage as we expected from the very beginning of this arc. So it's nice to see this finally coming to fruition. But then Twice is like, you know, good luck with that. It's like elephants against ants out there. And then we see Mr. Compress, who is visibly damaged at this point. It's like, Dobby, we were naive. He wasn't using his full power when he was fighting against us. It's like, no duh. It's like, don't you think that he could have easily taken you all out if he really wanted to? Like, were you not paying attention when he did a friggin' 5-finger Delaware smash? But it's also confirming that the original Twice still has Toga, and that Mr. Compress is teaming up with Dobby, I guess, to take on Getten, and that fight still hasn't resolved yet. And we also see that Spinner is still in the midst of battle, I guess, against Hanabata still. And he's, like, not doing any better, I guess. But then they're like, you know, Gigantomachia, he's going after Tomura. So I think that's also further setting up that we're very likely going to see, at least for a little bit, re-destro take on Gigantomachia. And I assume that once re-destro goes 100% stress mode, which, come on, he's got to at this point, he'll probably be able to compete against Gigantomachia, like I've been saying. But I don't know. I don't know if Gigantomachia is going to take him out, because that would kind of defeat everything that Tomura has been doing here, unless Gigantomachia takes out re-destro only for Tomura to take out Gigantomachia. Not kill him, or maybe he does. Maybe that's what he does to gain his respect. Oddly, is killing him, but I don't think so. I think they've kind of been setting up Gigantomachia as like a super powerful force and an ally for the League of Villains here, you know, going forward after this arc, rather than just letting him go just as like a symbol of improvement for Tomura. But speaking of Tomura, he straight up destroys, I guess, his father's hand that he has here. Yeah, actually, that's what the narration says. With the destruction of his father's hand, true evil awakens. So not all of his hands are gone. We see he still has one in the back of his head, and maybe he has more. I haven't been keeping count. But I guess him destroying his father's hand is like unzipping him the furthest he's ever been unzipped. He's kind of like has like his own little re-destro percentage thing going on here. Like maybe he's at 80% here. Maybe he's at 90. Maybe he's at 100. I don't know. It says true evil awakens. So I guess with the destruction of his father's hand and most of his other family members' hands, he's going to just go full potential of decay. Maybe something we haven't really ever seen in the story yet. Maybe it goes further than what we initially thought. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the review, and I did enjoy this chapter, and I just can't wait for the next one. I just want to see the conclusion of this arc. It's going to be epic. And then, of course, after that, we're going to get into the hero stuff, or at least I hope so. But yeah, let me know what you thought about this chapter. Let me know what I got wrong. And if you liked the video, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.